All right. Hey, everyone. I hope you're all having a good day or good evening, whatever time you're consuming this little bit of media. Um, all right. So, yeah, some pretty interesting things have taken place, for me personally, and but also collectively, and things will be, I've been pretty consistent over the past few weeks talking about the background energy and just what's been building and how long it might be building for. And my sense of it is that in general, there's not going to really be a slowing down. We're in a very mutative space, and that mutation is gonna continue. That mutative pressure. And the thing about mutative pressure is that if you can't, as an organism, if you can't adapt to that pressure, then you're not going to be around. So there's a lot of pressure to adapt. There's a lot of pressure to mutate and to be a mutative force. So there's people on the planet, there's individuals on the planet who through their design hold a very mutative frequency, and that frequency is going to be amplified mostly by the people who don't have that type of design. People who are open in the more mutative or individual areas of their body graph are going to be feeling the effect of that mutative pressure very strongly. And it's going to go how it's going to go. Some people are going to be able to, some individuals are going to be able to rise to that challenge, to that pressure, and some won't. And it really is about position and location. If you're in the right place around the right people, if your spirit is aligned with your authentic self, then it's probably going to be just fine. Not only is it going to be just fine, it's going to feel amazing. And I think there's a lot of people, certainly not a majority, but there's a lot of people on the planet who have been not struggling, but just sort of like making do, because things are hard. Like, it's very hard to navigate. If you are interested in living a life that is without a whole lot of compromise, you're probably going to be living a fairly marginal life. Not poverty necessarily, but anyway, those types of people are probably going to feel just fine. There was something very interesting that happened when we went into COVID lockdown. A number of psychiatrists reported that their most neurotic clients were feeling the best that they felt, ever. There was something about that moment, and that not the event itself, but something about just the world stopping. Everything stops, right? Everyone's at home. No one's going to work. Dolphins are in the canals in Venice. It was that first 3 weeks. It was like kind of a magical time in a certain way. Obviously a lot of people didn't do very well with that, and that's completely understandable. But there was a subsection of the population that was not doing well and started doing better when everything just stopped. And it's not that everything is going to just stop, but I think things are going to be very disrupted. And a lot of people, such as myself, or people who are interested in like alternatives, real alternatives, not like let's keep the monetary system as it is, but we'll use Bitcoin type of alternatives. Not that there's anything wrong with Bitcoin necessarily. It's just kind of dumb to build it on like the same kind of monetary system and policy. And so then it ceases to be an actual alternative, because it's very reliant on everything remaining the same. It's just now like Bitcoin is, money. So yeah, so people who are into real alternatives, people who are really looking for something to be very different, are going to be probably quite pleased and feel quite good about it. And then there will be the other side of that where people will not be very happy about it, but can't be helped. All right, John, can we put the transits up for the next month that I sent you?
Yeah.
All right, thank you. So, okay. What's going to be happening? We're closing out October. October was very busy. A lot of, from any angle, thank you. Astrologically, transits. And I've heard a number of astrologers actually talk about the concern that they have in terms of the transits that are coming up. Like, it usually, these kind of things, they happen, very infrequently, and they're very disruptive. But on the other end, you get like a new start, a new order of some kind. So from the human design perspective, October was a very busy month. November, December, and January are actually all looking also very, very busy. But the really interesting thing about November is that the major transits are all happening on what are called individual circuitry. So when we're looking at the 2343, for example, that's the ajna to the throat. Any channel that's in the center, in that, so there's 3 lines going down the center. Any channel created by that center line, in that center line, that's individual energy. And then there's a couple of other, like the center lines on the periphery of the chart are also individual circuitry. And individual circuitry is by its design very mutative. It is the individual that brings mutation to the tribe. It is the individual organism that survives the mutative pressure and then passes that genetic change into the collective. It's the individual that brings the new into what has been, right, and changes it for good or not. There's organizations and everything. There's all this collective tribal stuff going on, but in the end, it's we all know who they are. They're and again, for good or not, however you feel about him, Elon Musk is obviously a highly mutative individual. Joe Rogan's a highly mutative individual. I don't know offhand because I don't have their birth time, so I can't really look at their human design. But I would imagine there's some heavy-duty individual circuitry in both of their designs. So we got the 2343, we got the 214, both being activated in early November, and then toward the end of the month we get the 3420, the 3457, and the 2057. These are called integration channels. They are very individual. They're so individual that they exist pretty much outside of the rest of the body graph. It's its own circuitry. And so yeah, we're heading into what is going to be a very mutative month. And very individual, right? It's not going to be a collective experience. It's not going to be a tribal experience. It's going to be a very individual experience. We're all going to be confronted with what is and what is our willingness to accept and move forward, and what is the best way for us to actually be doing that. I had kind of more on this. I had a very interesting experience, a few very interesting experiences. The first one is that this show this week wasn't even supposed to happen. I was supposed to fly back to Ashland, where I moved from, and pack up my house and put it on a truck and get all the things here. There was a number of things that were showing me it wasn't the right thing, but it seemed like the right thing. So I'm still capable of my mind overriding my emotional authority, even though I've been a good boy and I've been like really following human design, but or my design, because it works, and it just affirmed. It was sort of like, okay, because a bird hit the plane I was supposed to get on. So I knew I wasn't supposed to go. It didn't feel right. The timing of it and the pressure that I was under from other people made it seem like there was no other option. So I went through with it, and I was lucky because in the past, as I spoke about on that first video that I did here on this channel, I got hit by a car, right? My life changed. The direction of my life changed forever because I got like seriously injured. And a lot of people have that experience. Their life changes after a cancer diagnosis. Their life changes after, they go to the doctor and their cholesterol is like 300. And, if you don't start making changes now, you're not going to live very, that kind of stuff. So my shock was very minor, and it was more of an affirmation. It was more of like a little love tap from the universe instead of a smack upside the head, which I've received numerous times. And so I didn't end up flying out. The next day, I'm working on a new client, and I was supposed to be working on her while I was in Ashland, but instead I'm working on her in Sedona. And it's a very different vibe. It's a very different vibe here. Astrologically, for me, Ashland has a Pluto energy. So it's right on my Pluto line. For those of you who haven't ever looked at your astrocartography, I would highly recommend it. You can get a free chart at astro.com. I'm sure there's other sites where you can get that done, but it's basically locational astrology. It's looking at the planetary influences on different parts of the Earth, and then it sort of gives you a bit of a heads up about what kind of energy you'll be walking into when you go and visit these places. And sometimes it's good, sometimes like because Pluto brings endings, and Pluto's a lot about power. It's like a power. There's a power struggle. So, the whole time I was in Ashland, I felt like I was fighting being there and fighting my situation. When I got to Sedona, though, it's a very different energy. I don't actually have any activations here. I think the closest line I have is in New Mexico, which is my sun line, which is good, but it's pretty far. Albuquerque or something. So I'm working on my new client here, and I'm working on her here. I'm not working in that Pluto energy, working on her here. And just was, without getting into too much detail, was able to clear something very significant off the, see, something's not right about what I'm saying because it's not flowing. Okay, let me put it this way. I've known for a while now that we are in a spiritual war, and that more than likely this world has been under the control of something very, very demonic. It doesn't make sense otherwise, from what I've seen and from what I've experienced, and just the general state of things, the torturous existence of most people's lives. Even if it's a good life, good in the sense that you're not starving and there's no violence in your city. Working a job you don't like, probably. Drinking a little too much, probably. Eating food that is, we all know, our food has poison in it. It's really hard to not eat poison. Like, that's wild. Our water has, there's birth control in, someone did a study recently where they were looking at fast food burgers and things, and they were measuring the presence of birth control in these burgers, and I mean it's very high. So yeah, and it's like I don't eat that stuff, but a lot of people do, and they're going to be affected by it. And even if I try and eat as clean as I possibly can, I'm sure it's still going to make its way in. So, and that's its own kind of torture, like knowing that even if you do the best that you can possibly do, you're not going to do as best as you can, because it's just not available. It's not an option. So, our food's not fit to eat, our water's not fit to drink, and our air's not fit to breathe. When I was born, there was lead in gasoline. Why would they do that? Like the Romans knew that lead decreased brain function. With that being said, they still built their sewer system out of lead pipes, which was also part of the water delivery system. So, again, kind of weird. So I've been fighting the spiritual war. This is very much a part of my purpose on this planet. I've come here to participate in this ascension process, and I've come here to clear, demonic energy off this planet. Even though I know it's what I'm doing, when I say it, it still sounds weird, but that is what's happening. And with this new client, I was able to clear it. Now, I don't know if it's just because the Earth is doing its thing, the Earth's frequency is rising up. We're in this ascension process. The Earth's shifting is putting pressure on us, stress on us. It's that mutative pressure of the Earth's ascension process that we are being asked to harmonize with. What happened after I cleared this energy off the planet through this woman who I've been working on was that all the systems kind of just disappeared. So I talked about systems, I think, in almost every broadcast, but basically a system is anything with multiple inputs. Corporations are systems, right? Nike is a system. It's a fiction. It's a legal fiction. The only reason why Nike exists is because people buy shoes with that swish on it, right? If people stop buying the shoes, if people stop going to work, right? It's like that doesn't exist. It needs the energy of the collective in order to survive, and so it's going to manipulate the collective to get what it needs, and that's basically advertising. So corporations, sports teams, military, nation, religion, and family. Also, as far as that goes, they're all systems. They don't exist unless the people who are giving it energy and supporting its presence are willing to do that. Once I removed the presence of this, what the Gnostics called the demiurge, which from what I've gathered is probably the most accurate interpretation of this energy. Basically, yes, there's been a demon running Earth for a few thousand years. I don't know exactly how long. But yeah, once I cleared that, all the systems were gone. So we're not under the influence of any of these systems anymore. What has happened is because we were born and raised under the influence of these systems, some of which were very old, Catholicism, for example, or Judaism, these systems have been around for a very long time, thousands and thousands of years at this point. And they were also built on top of things, right? They both kind of co-opted, different kind of myths and archetypes from previous societies. So all that just, when I check in on it, it all just feels gone. But we've all been heavily conditioned by the presence of these systems, and so our nervous system is still vibrating at the frequency that those systems wanted us to be vibrating at, so that they can maintain their presence on this planet. So the work that I've been doing since that clearing has been very much about working on the individual nervous system, and working on the individual nervous system so that they are no longer holding that frequency. You know, human design talks about this in a bit of a different way, talking about the difference between the 5-centered being, the 7-centered being, and the 9-centered being. The first people, like the first hominids on the planet, were 5-centered beings. They were like animalistic. They were human, but they were 5-centered. So they didn't have the third eye. They didn't have the ajna center activated as a area of perception. We are very centered by our visual experience, right? Our third eye, our ajna center, which is also about thought and cognition, very, very front and center in terms of how we perceive. They were perceiving more from their spleen. Their awareness was splenic, which means it was instinctual and also intuitive, and very much focused on survival. Survival of the species, not necessarily survival of the individual. When the 7-centered beings started to be born, there were still 5-centered beings on this planet, and they had been sort of dominant. Not in the way the 7-centered beings were going to be dominant, because the 7-centered beings are literally designed to be dominant and to build hierarchies. And so there was this period of time, the first modern humans started appearing, say, 250,000 years ago, but they didn't really reach dominance until, when did the last 5-centered being, die out? Maybe 75,000 years ago, 80,000 years ago. Maybe, who knows if that's even true, if that's even the correct timeline, because Lord knows we've been lied to considerably about our history and our place on this planet. But either way, say this is correct. So there's 5-centered beings and 7-centered beings, and they were cohabitating on this earth. And what that meant was that the 5-centered frequency was still very strong, still very dominant. And the 7-centered beings were able to work with that frequency, and they were able to tap into the intuitive guidance that they were able to speak to the earth the way animals do, or hear the earth the way animals do. But they were able to take that message and run it through their developed ajna center, their developed third eye. And so they were able to start building things, right? They're able to start developing technology based on the guidance of the earth, right? They're still very tapped into that splenic awareness, but it was all being sort of filtered through that more mental, intellectual framework, and like the visual, so art, finding ways to make color, all that stuff. It was a very slow process, and once the 5-centered beings were gone, the 7-centered beings kind of ran amok. Really became dominant, and started to mess with things that they probably couldn't have messed with if they were still connected to what the earth was telling them. And from my work, from the sessions that I've done, from my own sort of intuitive probings, seems like, and I've talked about this before too, but seems like the earth has been asleep, and maybe the presence of this demiurge, while it was kind of around and creating reality, or the structure of it anyway, maybe it could only do that because the earth wasn't really participating. The earth was dormant, say. I think the world was very different. I think there was a vapor canopy. I think there was a difference in the sun. I think there was a lot of different things going on. I think people did live a very long time. And I think that they were able to do things that we would consider to be kind of like supernatural, but to them was the most natural thing. And it was just because the earth was very different, and the earth was very alive. When the dinosaurs were around, they got to that size, like everything was huge, right? Because it was like a greenhouse. There was a layer of water vapor that was blocking out the sun and trapping the heat. And that water vapor also, I was listening to this guy talk about hydrogen, and hydrogen is actually how we get hydrated, right? It's the hydrogen in water that our bodies actually need. It's not the oxygen. And he was saying that most of the hydrogen on the planet is up in the atmosphere, like it just kind of floats up. There's nothing to really trap it. But if you had something like a vapor canopy, if you had a layer of water as atmosphere, then the hydrogen would be lower down. And if with the hydrogen you get increased healing, like you don't age as fast. So maybe that's what was going on. Either way, when this demiurge came in, all that went away, and maybe that was the flood. Just that vapor canopy crashing down. But apparently it's also water coming up. So it was like the flood was coming from underneath. And there's a tremendous amount of water under the Earth's crust, right? Like the Amazon. I talked about this, I think, the last time too. But the Amazon has twice as much water underneath it as like on top. And they keep on talking about finding oceans under the Earth's crust. Like there's more water under the crust than on the surface. And so, all just sort of interesting things to contemplate. But either way, so we had the seven-centered being world is very dominant. It was very hierarchical, and it was very experimental because they had that ajna center, like what happens when I do this? What happens when I do this? And that was just kind of the game on this planet for a long time. And then the nine-centered beings started coming in 1781, which is what we are. And it seems like the replacement happened much faster. So I don't think that there were seven-centered beings sharing the planet with nine-centered beings for very long. But the nine-centered beings born during that seven-centered dominant period, so the first ones who were born in the 1780s, they would have been heavily conditioned to behave like seven-centered beings. And they would have been under the influence of the seven-centered institutions that existed at that time. And those institutions are still in place in certain ways, especially with like legal system, banking, and current currency speculation, stock markets, all that stuff that already exists. Commerce, buying and selling, which to the seven-centered being would have been a power trip. It would have been like how much can I undercut this guy? How much can I overcharge this guy? That's how they were designed. If you go to certain places, car dealerships still operate that way. You can't trust them at all. If you go to certain places, I don't know if this is still true, but for a long time that sort of bartering thing was like part of the deal, right? It was almost like a ritual. Both people knew that what price they were willing to kind of agree to, but somebody had to start high, and then the other guy had to go low, and then they would meet somewhere. And it wasn't because they wanted to. Like I said, it was like this ritual. It was sort of like tradition. This is how we've always done it, and this is how we still do it. What's going to be happening now that these systems have been removed and are no longer putting interference on us or influencing us in the way that they used to? It's up to the individual nervous system now. We're all still holding that frequency. We're moving to the end of an era in 2027, but as long as there are people who were born before 2027 alive post 2027, the energy that we are currently in will still be expressed. It'll just be different because it'll be through different filters, different locks, different keys. I won't get into that. It's like I don't even understand it enough to really talk about it. But so it's the work for all of us right now is about identifying what we're holding in our nervous system, what conditioning we've been under, and what we're still currently expressing with the awareness that we have, that we have the capability to manifest what we believe to be true and what we expect. And a lot of what we've been conditioned to believe in those areas has been put there by things that, first of all, aren't going to they're not coming with, like they're already gone. But they were never going to come with anyway. Like this new energy that's coming. It's very individual. It's very mutative. It's going to require everyone who's around to be very busy and very flexible, very, very adaptable. There's going to be a lot of things for us to have to adapt to, not only on the earth in an ecological perspective, but just about the reality that we've been like trained into. I mean, I'm sure. Well, there was that video of Biden recently where his chin is like all messed up. I don't know. Something's what's going to happen there. I don't know. Like something's going to happen there. His face didn't look right. I don't. Lots of people think lots of people have a lot of opinions on what might be happening there. I have no idea, but there's a truth about what he is and what's happening to his face, and like I don't know. That's gonna come out. Yeah, just how wrong everything's been. People are going to have to really confront how wrong everything has been, and how little control we've had over it, and how little freedom we've actually had, and how little ability we've had to exercise our own free will, and that not everyone has the same amount of free will. Not everyone's here to have that kind of experience. It's going to be difficult for a lot of people, like what I was saying. And October was very much about, and we're also in this, eclipse cycle. So we had the lunars coming up on the 28th. This lunar eclipse it's all about like endings, things coming to a close, and that's very much the energy that I'm feeling. And then November's gonna roll in, and everyone's gonna be confronted in their own individual way with what has ended, with what is no longer present, and how are we as individuals going to respond to the new, to the new energy, to the new opportunities. It's usually about this time that I do some work, and that I create like a bit of a gift, a bit of an energetic gift for those of you who have tuned in today, or those of you who are going to tune in later on. But I can't do it anymore. Like there's no ability to build a system anymore. This is what I'm feeling. So it's sort of like all the corporations, like there's not going to be a lot of new stuff moving forward. There's not going to be a lot of like new advances. There's like, we're kind of where we're at is where we're at. What's really cool though is that we're going to start using, like I had this revelation about cell phones. The reason why people don't use them correctly is because the background energy doesn't support the use of them like correctly. So it's just superfluous. It's weird. It's like we have this thing in our hand. It's got the complete collection of human awareness and understanding on it. Now with like AI, you can ask it to do stuff for you, and it will do it like pretty well. Not physical things, but if you want to know something, it can find it and it can explain it to you like pretty well. You want to learn something, it can help you do that. I'm not a huge, like I haven't messed around with it. I don't feel like I need to, or that anyone really does, but still, it's there. I was walking my dog, and I was having this internal struggle about leaving my phone at home or taking it with me. And I really wanted to leave it because I don't like having it on me, especially when I'm like walking or active. It doesn't, like I don't like the feel of it, so I was going to leave it at home. But then I was like, well, if someone needs to reach me, like if someone in my family needs me, my daughter, my wife, and I don't, maybe I should take it with me. And I just for whatever reason, that internal struggle led me to understand that that is really what it is. Like the cell phone makes it very reachable, makes us very reachable. I get that the corporations, the corporate structures, that there might not be an AT&T on the other side of this, or Verizon, or anything, right? But there will still be the cell towers, and people, the individuals who are highly mutative and highly skilled. Like there's a ton of people making interesting things. There's you should all check out the thunderstorm generator. It's a wild thing. It's a wild piece of technology, and it's wonderful. And I think it's the future. Or something like that will become not dominant, because that's not the age that there's no dominance. We're not moving into another age of dominance. Like there's no dominance if we're all going to be individuals. People will seek dominance, but whatever. They'll, develop their own thing. They'll come together. There will be an alpha of some kind. There will be a leader, for good or not, and people will follow them. And that's all well and good. But yeah, so there will be individuals like this guy who developed this thunderstorm generator, or thunderbolt, or whatever it's called. But it's basically using plasma to generate lightning, and then the charge of the lightning is used to power whatever it is you want it to power. And it's like captured in this glass tube, and the plasma itself can maintain its charge through its own byproducts, so you don't get carbon monoxide. You don't get like any of these excess gases. It's all being used up by this process. People are going to repurpose these cell phone towers, and maybe they're going to use them to transmit, different frequencies, right? Like maybe, we know that, 5G and just those frequencies that are being emitted by these towers they're not good for us. They're certainly not good for bees. They're not good for birds. They're not good for life. And so maybe when they repurpose these cell towers, and we can still use our phones because we're going to need them, they are going to be important, and it's a good technology when used in the right way. Maybe they'll also repurpose them so that they're transmitting on a bandwidth that is quite healing, or something like that. Just not something that's more supportive of the individual, rather than the compromise that is all too common. The individual compromises the integrity of his form to go work or to go to school, and no one wants to sit that long. No one needs to sit that long. No one needs to inhale fumes every day that destroy their lungs or give them liver cancer. But how many people are doing that? Lots and lots. Not only are lots of people doing it, but there's lots of people who wish that they could, because they're doing nothing. This world is, it needs to be different. It needs to change. People have talked about that for a long time, but now we're actually in a place where something can actually happen. That's my hope anyway. That's the sense that I get, and I just know from how my work has changed that something fundamentally is different. There's an absence of something that used to be very, very present, and like I said, November is going to really bring that. Well, November, December, January, but it's all going to start next month. So. Exciting times. I hesitate to say exciting even. It's just like, it's going to be what it is. There's going to be things that don't go well, and that's that can't really be helped. But for those of us who are interested in real alternatives, we're going to get some insight into what those alternatives are, and it's going to be coming very shortly. So. Yeah, keep your eyes open. No fear. There's no reason for that. We're not, as nine-centered beings, we're not here to focus on survival. We're not here to struggle, right? That's just the conditioning that we've been under, and now the systems that were built upon that hierarchy and struggle and domination are gone. And so it's just our nervous systems now that are still wired to look for the struggle. And as that gets removed more and more, it won't be like that. For those who do, there will be a lot of people who will stay under that same kind of programming. All right. Well, if there's anyone in the chat that wants their human design looked at, I can do that. I could take a minute and do a very quick chart reading.
Yes. Where are you from?
Where am I from? Like physically or galactically?
I don't know. Maybe both.
I mean, originally I'm from Canada, but I don't know where exactly. Yeah, it's not. I'm not stressed. It's just like. No, I feel like this is like I was made for these times. I don't. Yeah, galactically, I don't know. It's a very good question. I do have memory of being somewhere before I was here. The memory's not very good though. Like it feels like I was sort of like coerced, kind of like that sort of like that Rambo type thing. Like there's always that guy who's like the best guy, and he's like retired and he's got a family, and then like the choppers land. And they're like, we got one more mission for you, and if you don't do it, well, I can't say that things are going to go well for you, And that's the energy that I got. That I came here for this time, and I came here to do this job, and to facilitate this this part of the ascension process. But I don't know, if I had complete choice, I probably wouldn't have done it. And I think everyone needs to be really careful. There's a lot of people who like to dress up what it is to be a healer. It's not. I wouldn't recommend it. Like if you want to do it and you have the skill and the temperament for it, by all means move into that mode. But like it's not something I would recommend. Like it takes a lot of strength and it takes a lot of courage. Yeah, I think we choose in the sense that it's like, well, what do you want? Like, do you want to come? Yeah, it's not easy. We like our choices are limited. We don't have we don't have limitless options. Usually it's one or the other. Do you want this? Yes or no? And both have consequences. And if the yes doesn't have as painful consequences, then we're probably going to do that. So yeah, that's my sense of all that. All right. Well, if no one, let me just check in here and see if there's anything else before I close it up. Let me drink some coffee. See what the caffeine brings. Also, everyone, coffee. I can't stress this enough. It's the same thing as like our cell phone. Like it's a really wonderful technology when used correctly. And I've full disclosure, I've done a lot of drugs in my time, but nothing has done for me what coffee does. And but I drink really good coffee, and I recommend everyone who likes coffee should. Yeah, I could look at your chart. Currently drinking coffee as well. All right, thank you. Yeah, send me your birth info. We'll take a look at it.
Make sure she knows the all the stuff that you need.
Okay. Okay, there it is. Okay, everyone just hang tight.
And location.
Yes, location too. Awesome. Thank you. Everyone take a coffee break.
All right, here, I'm going to take that down. Go ahead and send that to me.
Okay. how do you pronounce your name? Is it Chaley or Kaylee? Uh-huh. 5:29 p.m. Shaylee. All right, perfect. Thank you. Okay. Send that on over. All right. So, let's see what wants to jump out here. Left angle cross of the plane. Yeah. All right. So, so you're what's called a manifesting generator. So you have a lot of energy, and you like to do a lot of things and like to do them fast. You're not, well, you have a defined emotional center, so you have emotional authority. Thank you, Shaylee. I appreciate you too. So having emotional authority, basically, I've talked about this lots, but it bears repeating. It's authority over time. So when you have emotional, people with ADHD, there's this sort of like meme in the human design world. It's like, do you have ADHD or are you a manifesting generator? Because they're very similar vibes. And triple split? No, just a single split. All right, so emotional authority is authority over time. It just means that as an emotional being, you're going to go up and you're going to go down, and your wave, doesn't really have to relate to what's happening for you. So it's always best to wait that wave out, right? Don't make decisions when you're excited and happy. Don't make decisions when you're sad and depressed. You're going to have both. And you want to wait for those moments of emotional clarity. And that clarity can take time. It's like if every time you think about something, there's some kind of emotional frequency that comes along with it, then you're not ready to make a decision yet. You have to wait until you're like a bit calmer. You've got the 3955. So that makes you a very emotional being. That channel is about emoting, passion. So if you don't, it's just important to find something to find an outlet for that passion. So like there's a lot of people in composite charts, when I look at their charts overlapped, who make this channel, a lot of couples. And these are very passionate relationships. But what that means is if the passion doesn't get, kind of shuffled toward like love and sex and connection, then it's going to get shuffled towards like something, there's going to be fighting, right? There's going to be conflict when and it's, impossible, right? Every relationship is going to have arguments, going to have disagreements. People who make this channel together, their arguments are going to be very, very fiery, very passionate. Nothing wrong with it. It's just how the energy moves, and it's very mutative. This is one of those individual channels. So, the passion, the fire, evolution requires heat. The energy of heat is something that, and we're all having to adapt to that, right? It's very hot. The earth is hot, right? It's hot out there. The heat is part of the transformation process. It's not something that needs to be like, yeah, and this is the, like, again, just sort of showing how these demonic forces have worked. It's the heat's not the problem. The problem is that there's particulate in the air that is toxic to our bodies. There's chemicals in the water that is toxic to our bodies. There are chemicals in the food. This is important. The heat, maybe we can't even do anything about it at this point, but it seems like it's necessary. It seems like it's all part of this process. I'm not a climate denier, but it's just recognizing that the focus is shifted to something that's not the most important, and maybe it's actually quite helpful. And there's a number of people, Randall Carlson most notably, who have talked about how it's better. Like ice ages are not good. It's better to get hotter than colder, and that maybe we have. Because there was, we were supposed to be in an ice age by this point, so maybe like the heating has kind of saved us in a certain way. Anyway, so that heat, that passion, that fire that you naturally carry, and that people are going to be feeling when they're in your field, because you're changing them. You are mutating their chemistry just by being in their presence. So just being aware of that too, that there's going to be a moment where you're going to have to be like, oh, I have to leave. Get out before there's an argument, right? Get out before the passion, before it boils over, right? Before the water boils over. Putting space between you and the other's aura is gonna just make sure that the temperature doesn't get too high. You have the jack of all trades. The 36-35. So that's again just, you're gonna like to do a lot of different things. You're not someone who's gonna want to do a 9 to 5 and work the same job every day for 40 years. Like that's not part of your design, but that's cool because there will be opportunity. Right, when you're designed this way, when you're designed to move through life and have a lot of variety, that will just be how your life is. And again, the whole thing about design is there's nothing for us to really do. This is what we are. We fight against this every day, right? And when we start just letting ourselves be this way, then things happen, and it's different and it's more satisfying, or feels more successful, feels more peaceful, depending on what your design is. With that being said, you do have the 515. So it's almost like, the 515 it's very stabilizing. It's like you like to have a schedule, but it's almost like the sort of that adage, the only thing that's consistent is change, for you is very true. It's like you're consistently going to want to try new things. You're consistently going to want to go to the next thing, go to the next thing, go to the next thing, and there's something very frustrating for you if that's not happening. And that's that 515. It's like if you're on a track where there's too much consistency, you're gonna start getting very antsy. Because it's not really correct for you. You got the 5710, the channel of perfected form. So that's and you have the 10th gate activated 3 times. Now, what's interesting here is you got the Sun and Neptune. So wherever Neptune lands, there's mystery. It sort of obscures. So you've got your Sun, which is obviously going to be like a very powerful activation, your design Sun, but then you have Neptune there as well. So yeah, you can have behavior that doesn't really make a lot of sense to a lot of people, but that's again just part of that mutative. It's part of that mutative form. That's part of the integration circuitry. And the 57 is the gate of intuitive clarity. So you're always going to know what's correct. You're always, like for you, you're always going to know what behavior needs to come through. Other people might scratch their head at it, but for you, it's just like, well, it's the most natural thing. So, so just, it's an interesting chart. You also have a lot of left variables, and you're a 5-1. So yeah, people are going to project onto you. The 36, you're looking at your personality with the fifth lines. The sun in the 36 and the earth in the 6. I mean, there's a potential for a lot of conflict there. The 36th gate is literally the gate of conflict, and that's your personality sun. And the 6th gate is the gate of friction. So I'm gonna take a look at your incarnation cross, because this is actually, it's a very interesting one. Let me just get to it here. The left angle cross of the plane. The energy of your cross is to find balance and intimacy with people in your life. Your energies are driven to find the personal pleasure you require, but to balance that with your life as it fits within the collective. On one hand, you have this push to grab one of your dreams and run off to the cave to be alone, and on the other hand, to be part of the group around the campfire. Finding and displaying the balance is the key gift that you can bring to this world. So yeah, it's like what I was saying, you've got that jack of all trades, the 36-35, you want lots of different things, but then you also have the 5-15 where you like consistency and a schedule. So yeah, you can have both, but that's your conflict in this life, is how do you do that? How do you establish a consistent pattern while also giving yourself the absolute freedom to explore as many things as humanly possible? So good luck with that. When you get there, and I don't get that you're far, I actually feel like you're quite close to it. Yeah, but if you want to. If you want a session, I'll do a session with you, and we'll see if we can get something straightened out. I'm happy to gift that for you. If you can reach out to me, you can go onto my website. There's a phone number there, or you can just book a session. Don't worry about payment. Whichever way you want to do that, just get in touch with me, and I'll happily see if we can help you out. I actually wanted to give a session away today, so this is perfect. If you want, if it feels good, sleep on it. Yeah, sleep on it. Yeah, for sure. Okay, cool. Well, that's my time. That was an hour, so that was good stuff. So thank you everyone for showing up today, and onwards and upwards. And that's all for now.